Hello and welcome, everybody. It is good to see everybody today. Well, today is, I would like to say, the first of hopefully many. Good to see you guys out there. Thank you guys for joining us. I know that a lot of you guys are kind of expecting maybe DC the Breaker to be on tonight, but he unfortunately is not going to be able to be streaming for us tonight. So I thought I would jump on in and go over a topic that has been pretty fresh in my mind because I woke up this morning, and when I woke up this morning, I was inundated with YouTube videos that talked about nothing but economy, right? Nothing but the stock market is crashing, or this is going down, or this is going up, top 10. It was a lot about, our hobby and a lot of, value and valuation. So today I thought I would have a little conversation, hopefully with someone you guys enjoy hearing from for the first time, about the economics of collecting. So for me, the economics of collecting, I always like to start showing off with some goodies. So first, before we get into any conversation, we are going to, it looks like we have Dawn out there. Good to see you, Dawn. Thank you. Ice Wolf, Twitch. Yes, we know we're not on Twitch, guys. There is some tech issues we're still working out. So hopefully you guys can let everybody who normally is on Twitch give a shout out on our Discord. We have a Discord too, guys, and let them know. Let them know that we're just going to be on YouTube tonight. We are working all these tech issues out. But like I said, before I go on, I always like to show the goodies. So some of the goodies that we have today that we're going to be talking about are some really high-end baseball cards, as well as some modern comic books. And that's right, that's art back there. That is sketchbooks that I've been collecting recently. So some mailbox stuff that I've gotten recently. But the conversation we're going to have is our collection. We're going to have a collection of, looks like we got bourbon in the house. Dan, good to see you. Ice Wolf, again, guys, thanks for joining us today. We are all going to have an open conversation about collectibles and, more importantly, the economics of it. And for me, I like to use the word budget, but I'm definitely getting ahead of myself. I do have someone to introduce. And without further ado, I would like to introduce everybody to the DCD and DCDcollects. And there we go. Hello, Mr. Dreyer. For those who don't know, this is Doug Dreyer of the Collection Connection. More importantly, the DCD and DCDcollects, and my best friend. So, Doug, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Trevor. How about yourself?
Oh, pretty good. Excited. For those who don't know, we may seem, kind of, I guess, new to this because it is. We've been working really hard to make this happen, Doug. We've talked about this for a long time to put something like this together, put us out there and kind of have a conversation about collecting. So what do you think, man?
It's exciting. I mean, you said it. We've been talking so long about having a collecting podcast out there, something where we can be talking about the subjects of the day, the hot, the cold, whatever's going on, and really just getting to talk about the things we love. So it's exciting, and I hope we all get to be on screen a lot more. I think that's a big part of what our ultimate goal is here at DCD Collects.
Well, cool, guys. And again, you literally did just hear it from the horse's mouth. And I say that because what we're going to be talking about today is something you don't really get to hear from truly some experts. And Doug, we're speaking on economy, right? And economics and value in today's market, if you will. So I know that, why don't you explain a little bit of your background and why you're really qualified for this conversation?
Well, I mean, to begin with, I've been collecting since I was a little kid. My father was a collector, so I grew up around primarily sports cards, baseball, basketball, hockey, and football, but really grew up with the concepts of an accountant for a father. So learning a lot about the economics of it, learning a lot about the budgetary part of it, learning a lot about how you track things, learning a lot about the record keeping of it. And so that's really a basis for my collecting. But over the 40 plus years I've been collecting.
Wow, 40 years. You guys hear that's crazy. Yeah, keep going, please.
It's really been collecting at all levels, from the little things when I was a kid, collecting pens or keychains from places I've been to, all the way to some of the biggest cards in the world, some of the greatest memorabilia you can find out there. All levels. And now when we sold our collection, I really got more into the museum world of it. So I've really focused a lot more on the educational aspect of collecting, a lot more on the historical aspect of collecting. And as you know, Trevor, collecting is cyclical. It goes up and it goes down. And you can really track, if you think about, you can track history through collecting as well, the ebbs and the flows and the rise and the gains and the drops and so forth. It's all corresponding with each other. So it's kind of a fun little social experiment that you can do.
Exactly. And, we got Dan in here who we lovingly call Bourbon. So for those who don't know, we already have a very, very loyal following of what we like to call our family, right? So for us, that's what this is, right? And Doug, I'm going to steal a little bit of the thunder, the coin of the collection connection here, and that is connecting with collectors, right? And as we are doing that, we've already started that a little bit, right? I mean, where we started, for those who don't know DC the Breaker, DC the Breaker for us was a place that we went and watched sports card breaking, right? For a lot of people who don't know what sports card breaking is, it might be new to this channel, and sports cards, you might be into comic books or other collectibles. We go a lot of different gambits, if you would, right, Doug? We collect a lot of things, but for us, our heart was sports cards. So that's where we met DC the Breaker, and that's where this kind of evolved. And I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes because we're going to have an introduction video when we get DC on, but I do want to stay on track. But just to give people the breadth of the years of collecting between the group of us, I think accumulative, we've talked about that, right? 80 plus years.
Sure. And you can talk about your breadth as well. My collecting interest and collecting history starts with sports cards, sports memorabilia. It also goes into entertainment, Hollywood, television. It goes into first edition books, natural history, whether they be gems, minerals, fossils, meteorites, and a little esoteric things like Lego, the history of Lego, collecting Lego, magic, vintage magic, Houdini, Thurston, Chuck.
You guys hearing this? I mean, if you're not hearing this, I'm just saying, and I'm going to cut Doug off here a little bit because it can go on. And I say that for myself because it's right. It's rocks to coins to stamps to baseball cards to. We're collectors, right? I mean, that's what we are.
Collectors.
Right. And I have this conversation with a lot of people because this is going to deal with the conversation of economics. And I say that because us as, the old guard of collectors, if you will, we are in that world. Doug sounds a little low, FYI. Okay, great. Hey, cool. See, this is what I need to hear, guys. I'm actually going to boost his audio a little bit. Hey, Doug, give us, how about this?
Hello.
Yeah, is that a little better for you guys? Again, keep up the info, guys. This is all live. We're working with everybody to improve this. So hopefully you guys like to see. Speaking of that, way better. I just heard Dan. Nice. Okay, cool. So on the fly, we could change stuff. Speaking on the fly, Doug, check this out. Boink. Do you like that? Okay, we have lots of bells and whistles in here, guys, because I speak of that because look, we're gonna be able to pull guests up and have the internet cold. That's right, that's golden auctions. Oh, Doug, I can't wait to cruise auctions with you. I mean, but that's maybe not for today, right? I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because for me, I want to keep the conversation with where I was leading. Us as collectors, right? Us as collectors, the old guard. I say this with a laugh and a grin a little bit because some of you guys out there like Scuba, he's like, I was there when DC was new. Like, yeah, we've been around a while. A lot of our people have been around a while. We've seen this, to your point, before, right? We've seen these peaks and valleys and dips, as people call it, right? Buy low, sell high. We don't sell high necessarily is a better way to put it. Is that a good way to say it, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting rid of something as a collector, it's not just about the economic aspect of it. Quite often, letting something go as a collector is because something else is able to come in and you maybe value that a bit more. And so we tend to think of value less as monetary and more as emotional and what is going to fill the hole in our collection in our heart a bit more.
Well, I couldn't agree more because we talk about this in length as we watch. Maybe I shouldn't have taken that camera down because I'm actually going to go to the break cam really quick and I'm going to bring Doug in here. So we have Doug as well. Oh yeah, by the way, got some new fancy little things you can see twirling around that I'm working on. So we're going to have fun when we get into some of these breaks, but let's see if we can grab Doug over here from my other two box really quick. Dan says I got back into collecting after getting my card collection from when I was 9 years old from my stepmom's storage. Right. So Dan, I mean, we're old school. right? And
Yeah.
that's 9. You know, this goes deep. So we have seen this before, but I'm gonna try to get Doug in here really quick because I want to put in and I want to go over some of these cards that I have because guys, we're all there. We're in a point right now where me myself, I've got some really cool stuff that are new projects coming up that cost money. I don't have disposable income. None of us collectors do. There are a few people in the world that might, but even the richest of the rich all have the word you said earlier that I want to talk about, and that's called a budget, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a budget. So as I jump back into this camera here, guys, let me turn off some of these bells and whistles again. So turn the me off as well, right? We got all
Like
these things
Tinkerbell
going.
is going to be flying out of there.
Doug's like, I don't know about that yet. But what we do know about is my good buddy Doug there. Hello. Let's go ahead and shrink him down just a little bit. But as you guys can see, a lot of new tech in here. We're going to be hopefully having some fun. I know my guy Doug over here wants to do some box wars with you guys. And for those who don't know what a box war is, get ready. We're about to have some fun on this channel. But today is dealing with probably a little more hot topic because guys, look, I'm going to put something to you guys. I've got a couple cards that I was very lucky in pulling. So let's talk about pulling a card. What does that mean? That means I literally have taken this card out of a box, right? And that box of cards, let's see if we can get the new camera working here. That box of cards is a $200 card. It's a modern card. And I was lucky enough to pull this card out. This is a unicorn card, right? I mean, the odds of getting a card like this, Juan Soto, but the price point I got it was really cheap. I didn't buy it. And I love this card because of this number in it. Do you see what number that is, Doug? Number 7 of 50. For me, 7's a big deal. But this card more so, I like the stance of it. This is a card I want to hold on to. My problem that I have is I look at a card like this today. For those who don't know, this is a multi-$1,000 card. In my heart of hearts, it's a couple $100 card to me because that's what I got in the box, right? So what we're talking about is not only the equity that we have spent over time with our collection, but sometimes we got lucky. Sometimes we got lucked into buying the right #1 book because in the variant because I like Spider-Punk and it turned out to be, you know, a good storyline. It goes through every kind of collection. So I'll get to my point. Doug, in your opinion, when's the right time to sell? The ultimate question that we get, right?
Well, the right time to sell is different depending on your investment into the product. Is it an emotional investment that you got as part of your collection? Is it an investment that you view as financial? If you buy something like that Juan Soto card, so you pull that out, and that's not something that necessarily fits into your personal collection. It's not Griffey, it's not Wander, it's not Dodgers related, then you're sort of doing this, you know, opportunity cost kind of thing. If I sell this, what can I get out of it? And is it going to be useful to me? Is the value on the market more than the value emotionally in my heart, in my brain? And if it's more financially, then it's the time to sell. And really those do ebb and flow. You fall in love in and out of collections, really. Sometimes you conquer a collection, you've completed a set, and people view that as, hey, the journey was the emotional part. Now that I've done that, it's time to go and I want to start something new. So there's so many factors into when and how you should sell that you can't really define one thing. If you're looking at it from the purely financial standpoint, you sell when the market's hot and you buy when the market is low. But collectors have a really hard time doing that. When you're a collector and the market is hot, but that one item comes up you've been looking for forever, you sort of have to lose that emotional sense and go, I want it. And that's the collector part as opposed to the investment part. And that's the same for when you're selling.
Well, great. And I'll say this to the group then. You know, the few that we have in chat, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We're going to make these a little bit more elaborate. So as we grow this channel, we're going to get into some giveaways, guys. So I just want to cut to the chase real quick. I'm going to cut in the middle of that thought because, guys, I do recommend, I'm going to do another giveaway. 7 days from now, I'm going to come back on live. So if you guys jump on over, let's go to the internet really quick and get out of Golden Auction. So many great cards in here, Doug. It's crazy. If you guys go over to DCDcollects Instagram, this post that I did today about the economics of collecting, throw a comment in there. All DCD employees and family members are are welcome as well. I say that because, Doug, for us, this is what it has been about, right? I mean, we grew up literally sharing our cards and our collections with our friends, right? I mean, how many
Yeah.
times did you make backwards deals just because you knew that your buddy really needed that card, right?
Yeah. It's collecting, you and I, we started all this collecting. There wasn't social media. There wasn't cell phones to just send people. Like if I buy something now, or you and I were talking the other night, you were excited about something and instantly we were communicating about that.
Yeah.
Back then it was much different. And we built our binders, we had our cards.
Yeah.
If you were collecting, if I was an Angels kid, you were a Dodgers kid, and
Right.
I would show you, hey, this is what I picked up. Here's the Fernando rookie or the Kirk Gibson, whatever. We would trade, and I knew, hey, I was looking out for you. You were looking out for me. But it was very personal. We were there in person. We were sharing together. You'd go home and look at your stuff. Oh, I'm going to see Doug at school tomorrow, and I'm going to bring this. Nowadays, it's so different, but capacity for knowledge has exploded. The capacity for connectivity with people around the world. You can find Dodgers collectors in New York or in Canada or in China, in the case I know of one. It's just such a different concept, but you and I grew up being able to share things personally, right? And being able to connect over those kinds of things. And it's a much different world than it was now.
And I say that, and I hear that because speaking of a different world, Bourbon brings up a great point. He says that, he goes, man, we really do need to talk about NFTs, right? And have the conversation about that new collectible, because I jumped online for the first time. Bourbon doesn't know this. I haven't told him yet. So Bourbon, I bought my first crypto. And I tried to buy my first NFT. I did. And I went out because McFarlane jumped up and said, hey, we're doing NFTs with Steve Aoki. I went to Oddkey, no plug, we're not associated. It was legit. Like, I'm a Spawn fan. You guys can see some of my sneak books back there. These are all original art. I can't wait to show you guys this. Chris Majunkin is great. We got him on eBay, gave us a great deal. But my point to all this is that I went into that space and I was like, I'm a collector. How do I do this? So I turn on the thing and I'm like, just like for dummies, right? Let's just turn it on, see how I did. And I failed miserably, right? It was one of those things that if you're not in the space like Dan, or you have someone to help guide you through that space, it makes it harder. So, plug intended here, guys. That's what this conversation is going to be about for us, is having that open conversation of how, when, where, and how. Not that you don't know how to collect already. Of course we do. We all grew up with those symbiotic collecting genes. But what we're all trying to figure out is, man, okay, how do I buy a box? Do I buy into a break? Do I buy this piece of art? Doug, I guess that conversation I'm saying is what it comes down to. I really want a conversation of is, what is your thoughts and the best way to build a budget to collect?
Well, the first way to build a budget to collect is to sit down and have an honest discussion with yourself on what you have, what your ability is, and realizing, what is it I want to collect? What is my budget? Then what is my process of connecting those two? If I want to be a book collector and I have $100 a month to spend on books, then I know that my main market's probably going to be modern. What can I get at Barnes and Noble? What can I get through book clubs that have offerings? It's really sitting down and thinking about what you want to collect, which is really hard because so many times we don't know. So many times we fall in love with something and we go, I want to go buy it. And then you go out there and buy it. And I tell people this all the time.
I know.
Usually when you enter a collection, when you start collecting something, you're buying on impulse, you're buying on emotion, and you're going to lose money. And that's okay, because that's your first item. That's your first really experience, but you don't know enough yet. And really, the longer you're in something, the more you learn, the more insight you get. But it's figuring out, what do I want? What is my goal? Do I want to build a set of something? Do I want to have a player collection? Do I want to build a Spawn collection? Okay, if I want to do Spawn, I know I have to think this. And there's a thing we did when we were collecting books, like, what is your roadmap? What is your starting point? and what is your end point? And then what are the points there that get you from A to Z? And we would come up with that in books. Look, every base collection and this type of thing, you need these 4 books. It's clear. Let's just say piracy. You've got these 4 books are the basis of collection. But as you get further along, these books are going to be rarer. They're going to be more interesting, harder to find, whatever. But you really need to sit down for intelligent collecting and have an honest talk with yourself of what do I want? What is my budget? And what are the ways to go about it? It's not often easy to fall in love with something and then be really rational and Google it and research it. You see something, you like it, you go on eBay and you buy it, and then you show someone like, oh, that's a great thing, but I could have got that for you at a different price.
Doesn't that kill you? I mean, that is like the ultimate to me when I'm just like so proud, Papa, and I bring it to someone else and they just yuck on my yum, and I say that because it's right? It's deflating.
it is deflating. And so that's why I say people, look, when you start out collecting, you don't have the knowledge base you need. So expect to not necessarily get the best deals. Expect to not know the right places to go. But you know what? You bought something because you loved it, because it connected with you for whatever reason, because you connected with it, whether it's, it brings you to a moment, a memory, a place, a time, a thing. That's what you have to focus on. There's a real power to your first item in a collection.
And I say that because Brent's like totally tagging in the chat here. Brent, good to see you, buddy. Glad you made it. Thanks. Again, I appreciate everybody that joined us. And he brings up a good point. I've got my X-Men #1. I'm an X-Men guy. I got an X-Men run. I've got close to a Spider-Man run, Amazing Spider-Man. But we say this because back when we did this, and you've got it, we've got stuff, and we had stuff back then. It wasn't what it is today. And that's kind of the conversation I wanted to have today. I didn't want to dive too deep, but the shocking cost and now dealing with inflation to go with it, the valley is much higher and lower.
Yeah.
That conversation.
It's crazy. And I mean, you and I have been involved in this in a long time. And we remember the 80s where people were buying cases of Topps cards to get the Darryl Strawberry, and you could buy investment lots of Greg Jeffries cards, But
there was only one card. There was only one rookie. Nowadays, I mean, right? Keep going.
But people were going crazy. And then the market, the card companies, Fleer, Donruss, Topps, they responded, and then it overcompensated, right? Like then we got into that 90s junk wax era where everybody was buying boxes, and it's now so common. And now we've seen it. We've seen the ebbs and the flows, but now if you go back, the things people weren't collecting in the 80s, those rookies have become something. Some of those 90s sets, while gaudy are collectible now. The banana set from Donruss or Fleer, or the Fleer. And so it takes time to look back. Now, we've seen, particularly with the pandemic, people were hunting and thirsting for things to collect with. They were trying to connect with what they love, sports. They weren't able to go to games. They weren't able to buy, they had cash because they weren't buying tickets. They weren't
more disposable income, and now that's gone.
They had disposable income. So they threw it into collectibles. They could go out there, they could buy the cards, and that put a push out there, and people started thinking about, oh my gosh, it's going to be crazy. And then money was going absurd. Stuff that I might have seen at 10 grand was now going for 100 grand. Cards that I thought would be normal are going for $1 million plus. Like I think about, and you and I've talked about this, the Zion Williamson cards that were going for millions of dollars for a guy that had barely played a year.
Boy, that's a conversation for a whole nother podcast. It is, but it's in the vein of this, the economics, right?
Totally, because but what happens is people go crazy for that, and then what that does, it sort of raises everything else. People see cards going for a lot of money, so the boxes start going for a lot of money, and then other boxes want to balance it, and so things steadily rise. They're going up and they're going up. And and you and I look at that, we have no concept of that. You and I were vintage guys. Like, we understood Mantles and Wagners. You know, we could predict. And I would wake up in the morning after auctions and go, man, I don't know why that card is $3 million, $4 million. And then a year later, the guy gets hurt and there's nothing. And we look back and go, oh, the real rookie in that car in that set was X. So we go back, and those cards, after they drop, have now gone up, and it's an ebb and a flow. And, you know, people rush to something, and then when they see it's not working, they leave. And
so
then
what's that new word that I keep, and I didn't know this before, I gotta be honest, so sorry if everybody's gonna be like, oh, you're an old guy. I'm an old guy, by the way. I was born 1975, put my age out there. FOMO, right? Fear, I had to look it up. Sorry, I had to Google this thing. Fear of missing out, right? And I was just like, a FOMO. And everybody, I know it. Comic books is very much that way for me. I think there's a couple good points that Dan is bringing up here. Good to see Lee Cosi in the house, by the way. Didn't get to say it yet. For those who don't know, you should. Lee Cosi is another member and one of our other founding members of DCDcollects. He is one of the original artists that was in the original Brain Trust. Lee, it's good to see you. He is artist extraordinaire. If you haven't seen his work, check him out at Cosi Art. Also, he is Lee Cosi on Instagram. We'll get some links up for you guys eventually, but for today, they're bringing up some good points. I think Dan brought up, you know, what about that sale for $7.8 million for a card? Like, okay, for those who don't know, we have dealt with a Wagner before, right? And I say you have dealt with a Wagner before. Yeah. What do you think of a number like a Wagner? What do you think a Wagner in a 4 goes for?
So, and to give a bit of context, my family, we had a PSA 4 Honus Wagner, and now I see cards that are a PSA 3 selling for $6.6 million.
Wow.
And I'm blown away. And if you had told me 10 years ago,
no way,
hold on to this and you'd be stuck, I don't know. In my mind, can rationalize cards more. I can go, okay, I know Honus Wagner's career. I know that card has a history of 112 years that you can flow. You can track that. Even going back to Mantle in the 50s, there are
the famous New Jersey dump, right, where they dumped all the high numbers in the ocean. There's a story. Exactly. You're saying there's a, so again, now what we get at here, this is perfect. I'd like to hold you there because here's the thing. Yep. This is what I talk about when we buy as collectors, and I've done this my whole life when I've bought collections. There's always something in that collection that drew me to it, that was that piece that I was like, that ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
And so many people now, I'm going to get to Brent's question. He said, how come a box of Bowman's $800? I had no idea. I mean, I'm watching these guys crack cases. It's in, and let's just put it out there loud because we're going to break product too. And I say that when you get into sports card breaking, it's interesting. I'm going to use the word gambling. It's so much higher than where it was before, where we were trying to open up a box of 89 Upper Deck. We knew we were going to get 3 Griffies out of it. If we're lucky, maybe 2. Yeah. Packs were $1. But, you know, the whole chase we had and put them into sleep. But the difference of slanging dollar cards, $100 cards, or even 1,000 when we moved into the world of Babe Ruth Gaudies for $1,000. Oh, guys, yeah. You have no idea. You have no idea the old days. Then those who do, because Don said, don't worry, I'm older than you. So we got a couple people that have been around. And I say that because us old guard, this economic that you're talking about is not just shocking. We're now talking life-changing numbers. And how do you stay and buy an $800 box of cards? So I say this because my option to economics, if you want to get into cards, card breaking is great. If you look at it in a gambling way and make sure you don't get addicted and make sure you have a budget. So this goes down in the word of this conversation, right? Is how you're going to collect has to deal with your budget. So for me, I pose the question to you, how I deal with my budget is I was really lucky. I had a lot of collectibles, but I always think when I'm buying something, I'm a bundler, man. I'm always going to try to find something else to put in there that maybe they don't want as much or they devalue that I think I can value and put into another environment, right? Yeah. So let's talk about it a little bit, Doug. You've done that a lot, and we do that with our mystery boxes. We get what we like to call opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's something that comes with experience from the collecting side, right? Like you've now learned, hey, I expect it to be this much. What can I do? Hey, the guy's not budging. How can I make it more efficient? What can I do? You said it before. I mean, we used to buy collections My dad and I, and you were heavily involved. We would go and buy collections because we wanted a part of that collection. And if we were judicious in how we sold the collection, we could actually get what we wanted and sell everything else and actually make a profit. But that takes experience, that takes connections, that takes time, and
Takes
the
a
ability
bankroll.
and a bankroll. Like, you've got to be able to hold on to stuff. When we had our businesses of buying and selling, it was completely separate than our personal collections interest.
So wait, I want to stop you right there. I don't mean to interrupt. I want to stop. I want everybody to hear how important that is, because this is a topic that's very important about the economics of collecting. And it is. It's something I tell a lot of people, that if you're collecting, get an eBay account, right? I mean, have that ready. And not just that, but be experienced. Like, dip your toe in. Don't go in and go, oh, I'm going to buy a case of Bowman, or I'm going to go buy a box of Flawless, and get these cards out there that you, quite frankly, don't know how to recoup from the other cards and keep what you want, right? That's a conversation we're having, right?
Yeah. It requires collecting is a journey, and through that journey you're really going to get the knowledge base. When you are at the end of your collecting journey, or in the middle of it, I should say.
Yeah, better put, yeah.
You've got the people, you've got the connections, to go to shows, and hey, look, I've dealt with cards 20 years. That's not $100 card. Come on, I'll give you $50 for that, knowing you'll end up paying 70 or something.
But Doug, look at these cards today, though. I mean, that's a baseball card, guys. I mean, I say this because I've been out of collecting for a while. I always kind of, go buy tops or whatever. I jumped back in pretty hard in about the end of 19, early 20, really. And this is a 2021 product. For those who don't know, Luis Robert is a guy that I've been eyeballing for a while. Really, really good player. And I got really lucky, and I pulled this a one of one. For those who aren't familiar with one of one, they make products that are one of a kind. For a lot of the big collectors watching this, I'm sorry if we go too new, but that's kind of what we're doing. We're trying to put the whole world of collecting out to maybe people who don't see it. Comic book collectors, baseball cards. But what this is obviously a piece of game used material, the nape of the neck. But we talk about this all the time, Doug, the design, the technology that's going in this. We're talking right now to quite a few people for our mystery boxes of making our own custom cards. So this kind of goes into the economy of collecting that we're taking it to, quite frankly, let's say it, another level, right? Our economy in collecting is dealing with creating a business around it.
Correct. And that requires a much different mindset than the collecting mindset. Now, you can bring your collecting knowledge into the business side of it, and that from there you might learn, hey, this is what I know people like this because I've been trying to get it for years. It's going to be popular. But you have to really be able to focus and separate the two. And we used to, when my dad and I were doing this, we'd go through auction catalogs, and we would go through it twice. Once as collectors.
Oh, we're going to do that on this podcast too, buddy. We're going to.
Exactly. Yeah. But one time it was exactly what we wanted for a personal collection, and that was a different mindset. We knew that filled a hole. We knew that we had some sort of emotional connection to that. Whereas we'd go through the catalog again with the mindset of, what do we think is hidden value? What do we like these 7 items, they fit into our business model. We think they're worth buying at this point. Above that point, then it's not worth it for us. And you have to be able to separate that, because your collecting brain, as someone said here, is emotional. If you don't get that item, you're going to be depressed. You're going to have this like, oh man, I should have.
You're saying exactly what Bourbon did. Bourbon backed that up, and he goes, people and everybody buys with emotion. They just, because they do.
Collectors do, because it matters to them.
And I'll tell you that because everything behind me, and I spoke of this because we had a little pre-meeting before we went in, and we're feeling all fancy with our production meetings and all. But as I get back into here, I want to show you guys a piece to me that, quite frankly, so I'm a Dodger fan, and my friend Doug, let's see if I can get this lighting. He got me introduced to Kirk Gibson, and that's for another day, another story. But the opportunity in this ball, it's inscribed, right? Obviously ain't going anywhere, but even if it wasn't, the opportunity with this ball, to me, I told Doug as I put this back up here and put my light back down, I told Doug, I go, man, every time I look at that ball, I think of you and your dad. I can't not. And so everything behind me that you guys see is exactly that. It is, it's a memory, right? And I think I said this in our production meeting. Here's a weird psychosis, and I think Dan will appreciate this, and Abby, if you're watching, I think all you guys will appreciate this, especially it's the mental side of collecting, right? Especially now that we're dealing with that. Society's really got this pulse on mental health. And this. With collectors, I'll beg, you look around and tell me how many pictures they have of family members, more importantly, themselves, in frames around them, compared to how many items that they have around them. Those items, there are memories, there are pictures, they're a moment in time, right? So I leave that.
And you and I have talked about this. I mean, one of the things I've long known, and why I started the collection connection, which you see the logo there, is that we collect for a reason. We're thirsting for connection, whether we are talking about connecting to a moment, the Gibson home run, a memory, me opening cards with my dad and having pack wars, a group of people you want to be with, sports cards fans, whether you want you're connecting to a memory, you maybe collect postcards of places you've been to. It is emotional, and that is very powerful and drives us, and those who are collectors get it. And so if I meet somebody and they collect lighters, just to pick something,
right?
I don't collect lighters, but you get it, right? Like, oh, I totally understand. It makes sense to me for whatever reason.
Because you collect something close to lighters.
Collect something, yeah.
It's pins. For those who don't know, when I say pins, these aren't any pins. Doug has got a pin collection that is world class, but it's also so much sentiment and motion that goes into that collection.
It really is. I mean, it goes back to getting my first Mont Blanc when I graduated grad school, and I got a gift, and I'm like, wow, this is really nice. And then one of the books that when I was teaching, I often taught was Treasure Island. And so like Robert Louis Stevenson, and then like I realized, hey, one of my favorite books growing up was Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Like, hey, Mont Blanc made a Jules Verne pen.
Oh man, collector, here it comes.
All right, I'm going to go buy it. And it was so gorgeous. And then it was like, wait, they have a whole author series.
Oh man.
Okay. We collect books. We like books. What can we do? And then it's going back and it's like, okay, I know that the first ones are, Ernest Hemingway and Christie, and they had different setups back then, but we did it because it's a memory. I still can go to that collection and see that pen and enjoy that. But also one of the things I love about collecting, and I know we're off topic here, is the connections that other people make. My wife, her grandfather in Denmark had a Mont Blanc pen, one of the early orange ones, like 1913, 1914.
What are the odds of that, right? What are the odds of that connection?
And so that now sits in my pen collection, and it's one of my favorite items because, one, it's a Mont Blanc pen. Two, it's connecting me to my wife's family, to 100-year-old history in another country. And they felt strongly enough about that collection that I have to put that pen there. And so that's a story, and that's a way of like, hey, that spans 100 years and families and generations. That's really cool stuff. But the economics of it are, pens, particularly Mont Blanc, are expensive. And how do you keep up? Every year there's a new pen, and you have to really think about, right, do I want it? Do I need it? And so there are people I know who have a very, very disciplined collectors, and they say, look, I'm only going to have, let's just say baseball cards. Sure. I'm only going to have 100 items, 100 baseball cards in my collection.
I couldn't do that, but okay.
Couldn't do that, right? You and I, that's like, blows our mind. But I have 100 cards in my collection, and these are I started with 150. I take my top 100, sell the other 50, and that's my 100. And then I see.
And hold that, because guys, take note right there. Right, what you're doing is you're rationalizing, but you're also creating a budget. So keep going, please. Yeah.
So you then got your 100 cards, and then something else comes up, and you have to think, okay, that card, where does it fit in to this collection? Does it replace a number in the middle? Does it drop out the very bottom card? Is it ranked on hierarchy? Whatever. It's an emotional exercise of where it fits now. And then you say, look, I'm going to sell this. and then I'm going to use that to fund this.
So now we're back on track, right?
That's
Dan's
one way to
jumping
do
in.
it. You say, I'm going to take a collection and I've got X amount of dollars a month to spend on it. You then are a lot more, you do a lot more research. You're a lot more picky on what's out there and what you can get and how you get it. You have $100 budget and you've got 3 books. You got to make a choice. Of these 3 books that are out here, I can only afford 2. Which ones are more important to me?
Oh man,
So
as a collector, that economic is the hardest, because I say this as Ice Wolf is like literally back on the other topic we were talking about. He said, I met a girl in the store today and they talked for 30 minutes about Magic, and their biggest regret is that they gave their cards away as a kid, right? I mean, those are the things that as old collectors just rip our heart out, but back onto the topic of holding 100 cards, even Dan is like, there's no way, I just went through 3,000. But there's different levels of collecting, right? As we go through this conversation, it really is your own. So again, do your own research, buy what you like, and stay in budget,
There's no one way to collect. There's no one budget for collecting. I mean, I've been fortunate. I've worked with billionaire art collectors down to kids collecting keychains from where they've traveled, and the very base foundational reasons are probably very similar, but of course the budgets are different. But the reason we're doing that is because we find something that we connect with, that we love. It's really, you have to be honest with what your budget is, because it is not difficult to overspend, to overextend yourself. It is not easy, or it's not difficult. Like Trevor, you 2 months ago, how many sketch covers did you own?
So when I say this, guys, because he's bringing up a good point, I do not have unlimited funds. I don't. I'm actually on a pretty good budget. But my budget is different because it comes from my old collection, where I'm able to move different assets from my collection. And as you can see, I'm being kind of diverting to answer Doug's question, because guys, it's the same association that you have with an addiction. Any people that have collective type people have those kind of tendencies, if you will. I like to call us more organized addictions. Don't call me a hoarder. We're organized. But to answer the question finally, Doug, I think I'm up to like 10 or 12 books, because for me, I look at it as an opportunity, right? And this is back to what we talked about at the beginning of this. Having a budget so that when you see an opportunity or a market that might be low, like I think mid-level, silver-aged comic books, right? I'm going back and looking at some of those, and they're all boosted now. Everything's just kind of cruising, but even to the point, like I like Spider-Man, right? Spider-Punk, I love Spider-Verse. I went out and got the 1 of 50. It's absurd price for a comic book. It was like $50 for this thing. It's already gone up. But for me, it's not about that. My budget was, what do I have to sacrifice in my collection? Like these right back here. What do I have to sacrifice in my collection? How much value am I going to sacrifice? And at that time, it's not really like, oh, is it the right time to sell? That's what makes it hard. Like people are like, hey, when do I sell? What's the right time? The answer usually is the same. It's when you need to, right? Whether that's a car payment we all hate. We've been there. I've had recent conversations with friends. They're like, I'm so ticked off because I had to sell this and just to make a car payment or a house payment, or I've done it, been there.
Well, and Trevor, you'll know this. I mean, I can't even tell you how many collections came to us because of circumstances like need money for payments, need medical bills, there's a divorce, there's something. And while sad, a savvy collector can take advantage of that. And I remember we bought collections from a gentleman that I won't name, but it was like, hey, how's it going? Oh, I'm dying. You want my card collection? And like, let's talk, and so many times people want it. People will often sell their collection to get the most money possible, of course.
Obviously.
But there's also people who have put so much into their collection that they want it to go somewhere it'll be valued.
There's the other edge.
This was the love of my life. I put 40 years into this collection, and now I have to sell it for whatever reason. I can't see it broken apart. I can't see it to an auction house and the emotional part. But you know what? I'm going to call Doug Dreyer because I know they're going to value it the same way. We had the same discussions for years with our Kirk Gibson collection, right? We had the jersey, the bat, the helmet, the trophy, and from the '88 World Series.
Unbelievable. And Doug just kind of just put that out there, guys. That's crazy. But
that was a collection that we purchased because one, that was such an important moment in our lives. It's one of those where were you moments.
Oh, yeah.
I was with my dad at a wedding in Anaheim, watching that on the bar TV at the hotel. We bought that collection with a little bit of, we wanted to keep it together. They were auctioned off 6 different lots. There was an away uniform he never wore. And we're like, boy, you know what? That would be crushing to have that separated, right? The bat, the jersey, the helmet in particular, they got to stay together. So we knew we overpaid for that. We knew that we paid a price to keep that together, but we did. And it was in our collection, and people were thrilled. You got to hold the bat. Everybody, this first thing people said when they saw that, oh, I know right where I was when that happened. But it came time to sell that collection. And we knew that we could have put it on the market, and the same things we worried about would have still come into play. What if one bat goes to New York and the helmet goes to China and the jersey goes to Michigan? It should stay in LA. It should be part of California history. It's the most famous moment in LA's California sports. So we knew we were going to not get the full amount we could have with that collection, but we were okay with that because we felt it was so important. We had put so much into it and had such a connection to it that it needed to stay together, that it needed to be a part of something. So it took longer to find a buyer, but we did find a buyer, and it's now in Los Angeles together.
So great.
And that was a fiscal choice we had to make, as opposed to things it's like, hey, it's the big market, sell it, let's go. That one was like, boy, you know what? That has too much emotional and history.
Sociological, yeah. And I say that because that's what this is, right?
Yeah. It's one thing about being a collector, particularly when it comes to the economic part of it, is a lot of internal talk about finance and really understanding what your goal is, what your end point is. One of the things we talked about with before this today, we're having our pre-show meeting, is, man, today's world, people are freaking out, right? In the marketing world,
that's what stirred this up, right? That's why I started it. YouTube is like, the sky is falling.
The sky is falling. And it's so funny because you and I have been around long enough. We're like, oh, okay, let's take a look at things now. Let's go in there. We've seen enough high and lows, and we know we go in. Hey, the lows are where you can go in and really find some stuff that people are just looking to get rid of. People may have overextended themselves. We did that a lot with documents. I remember we had bought a group of documents for our investment portfolio, and there was a autographed drawing of Howard Carter, a signed cartouche of Howard Carter. I'm an
Egypt guy too. Holy cow!
Loved it. It was it's like the only item we ever bought finance for our investment purposes that I'm like, boy, you know what? I would own that. Like, that's my.
See, you're a collector at heart. Even the one you're like, oh, that's an investment.
We already had a buyer. We sold it. It made good money. And then 2 years later, I got a call from a guy. It's like, hey, I've got 10 items I need to sell fast. I got to pay taxes for something. Can you give me 40% if you do this right now? And one of them was that Howard Carter item.
Wow.
So
opportunity.
We bought it back. I bought it from the business, paid sales tax, did all above board. And then the other 9 items we sold, and we made money so that Howard Carter was essentially free.
And Doug, I don't mean to
have to think about that.
And I don't mean to cut you off here because we're getting close on time. We're almost close to the end of our hour. Believe it or not, how quick that went. And I can tell you that guys, listen to this. This is when we speak of the economics of this. This is, and I'm not trying to be doing it a long time, and the collections that we've seen and the valuations that we've done with collections at a high level. We look at stuff now today, and I want to continue this conversation with you, Doug. Thank you for sharing this because, guys, this stuff is very personal, right? It's very, and it always was. Like today, I think there's two different topics I want to try to cover really quick before we end. The first is how visible buying is today, right? Even eBay back in the day wasn't as visible. When we went back and buying it, it was, you're still under the radar. As they would put it, your dad was that guy that just people didn't know who was the buyer. Where today,
who keeps outbidding me? Who is CXXXXX4? Who is that guy?
Okay, so that's back in the day, right? And I say that because Hellbolt, we love you too. Thank you guys.
Love you, Hellbolt.
Keep it up. Thank you guys for joining us. This conversation is going to continue. We're going to continue longer, but where I was diving in there is that today it's so visible and almost to the point with the Logan Pauls and the Drakes, and you see Golden and all these cracking boxes live. It's becoming more of a, not a spectacle, but you know where I'm going with this.
It is. And I mean, I remember buying the Gibson stuff, and you'll know this. I mean, the Dreyer family, we were very under the radar. We were not publicity seekers. No. We collected because we loved it. We bought that Gibson stuff, and boy, we had a big internal debate about letting our name be used in the press release. And, we're talking to SCP and Kohler, and we allowed it. And I mean, generally the press is positive. It was, our quotes about keeping it together and Southern California history. We had great press, but boy, you know what? Everybody then comes out of the woodwork. Hey, will you buy this? You bought that. You can afford this. We were getting letters, and like, I remember somebody said, hey, here's a glove that was worn by Gil Hodges that I remember he was playing a game and I ran on the field and stole it in the second inning. And now I want to sell it to you. It's like, whoa.
So guys, as you can hear this conversation is going to continue. It's going to go so much deeper because
absolutely. But the point I want to make is when things are public, to go back to what you were saying,
please,
when things are public, it lifts a lot of other things up. When you see a card going for $7 million,
crazy,
people come into the hobby. People buy cards, and it's like that high tide lifts all boats.
I love that saying, by the way.
And you and I have had this conversation before where what we hope in all this, we know that the ceiling, the roof is going to lower. It's going to drop. It has to. There's no way people can continue spending so much money on cards and then getting burned. But what we hope is that the foundation has been raised. We hope that there are enough people who have come into this hobby through the last 3 years that stay in this hobby and make that foundation bigger, stronger, wider, building up. Because when there's a small market, it's way less stable. The larger the market is on collecting, the more stable it is. Trevor, you and I know this. For 20 years, we could see, okay, there's a PSA 8 52 Topps mantle coming up for auction. What's it going to sell for?
Right.
X, Y, Z. We knew.
You knew within 10%.
Within 10%. And when we sold our collection sports, we valued it, and we were within, I think, in the end run, 4% off on costs. And actually, we did better. There were 20%, 80% of the items you knew exactly what it was going to go for. 10% went higher than you thought. 10% went lower with you got. But that was a predictable market.
So I asked that to you. Okay, you bring up a good point then. Okay, how would you evaluate anything today? How do you? For those who don't know, Doug is an appraiser. So this is a topic that not only does he have experience, but a lot of education and some accreditation.
The wider the market, the easier it is to make that decision. I mean, really, when it comes to, and you and I, we've been through this, when there's one of ones out there,
right?
It's really what the buyer is comfortable spending matched to what the seller is comfortable selling for. I mean, I remember people would come to us, we had one of one items, one of a kind items, and they'd say how much, we'd say a number, and they'd go, yeah, whatever. And we'd say, all right, go find the other one, go find one. And then they'd come back a year later, like, all right, I'll buy it. Or you put crazy markets out there at an auction, an item is worth what two people are willing to spend plus one more stretch, right? Like it's you and I both think an item's worth $10,000, then neither of us are going to win it. But one of us has to go, okay, I'll go to 11,000. Boom. Marking, evaluating something today requires so much research. That is, if something like that one of one Louis Robert card comes up, okay, what do other one of one cards from that product sell?
Right. So comps, right? That's what people talk
about.
Got
to look today for your comps. And okay, we see that a David Fletcher one of one sold for XYZ. Generally, Robert cards sell for this much of a premium over that. It's a rookie card. But I mean, and this, that Louis Robert card, he got hurt last year, right? And then the value of his cards dropped a bit, and then he came back, and they
speculation. It happens in comic books.
It happens.
Yeah, and I say that because again, that's the other topic here in today's world. And again, guys, we're getting really close on the ending of time, so I don't mean to keep cutting Doug off. Thank you guys for joining us. We've actually had up to 18 viewers today. That's pretty good. There's a lot of bells and whistles we're going to be testing, and a lot more of this that we're going to be doing as soon as we're
going to be doing a lot more content. I mean, I know one of the ultimate goals of DCDcollects is to have continual collecting content. And I say this all the time. Our motto is cultivating collectors and creating community.
Love it.
And it's that cultivating, it's teaching, it's learning, it's cutting off the bad and bringing in the good and learning and all those things. And that community is the best part of it. I mean, I can't even tell you how powerful the community of collecting is. Trevor, I met you because we were collectors, and that was 22 years ago, essentially. You were in my wedding. I was in your wedding. We're best friends. We've met DC. I met Lee. I mean, so all these guys in the chat, they're our friends. We met because we collected, and now we have this common bond and speak a language. There's a real power there. And what DCDcollects and the collection connection as well want to really hit is building on that. It is having these conversations. It is realizing that we can all still collect together. It's communal. And so we really hope to have content, my show, Trevor's show, DC show. We want a Lee show. We want people to come to us. Hey, have a great idea for a show. Let's do it. We want content. People collecting coming to us.
Well, again, I say thank you for all of this because, for those who don't know, this has really been built on the Dryer collection. So even though I have my collection, as we go through this process, this is us all sharing stuff that we have never had an opportunity to share that we've been doing for many years. So again, guys, we want to hear from you. So please leave a comment down below. For those who've watched this long, thank you. For all our regulars, Hellbolt, Dan, Don, I know there's a bunch of people in here that have joined and dipped out. That's how this works. I know we're not on Twitch tonight as well. We are going to be simulcasting as well as soon as I get all this stuff figured out. But it's a work in progress, and it's all new. And I think that's what's great about this space, right, Doug? Is being able, the opportunity for us to turn this on in my house, in your house, in our space of technology, and have this conversation.
And you and I and DC and Lee, we have these conversations all the time. We're like, we should be filming these. Like, we love collecting. That is what, at the very base, we are collectors. And we have such varied backgrounds and interests and knowledge bases that we just hope that everybody out there enjoys it as much as we do.
Well, cheers, guys. And again, I say that because many more to come. We have a lot planned, not only into this, but also in our mystery boxes. We have some really exciting products coming out that I know I've spoken about before. The video's not still up. We have sketchbooks coming. We have, we really do. We have a lot of cool products coming. We're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. We'll get booth information, and we have some really exciting news about that. And we also have some pretty important news as well. So a lot of stuff coming up, guys. So please make sure you check out. I'm going to jump on over one more time, make sure all this stuff's working because I feel good.
Thanks
Doug's
for
already
being
saying
part
goodbye.
of our family.
Yeah.
That's what we love.
Instagram.
Thanks for being a part of our family.
Yep, Instagram. Thanks for being part of the family, and that's what Doug has always said about this. But this is our family. So connect with us on Instagram. That's where we're doing most of our messaging to our people of when stuff's coming out. Again, go back and throw a comment up on this video, guys, okay? We will be doing a giveaway on that. Not today. No giveaways today. We're just saying hi, making sure everything works. making sure we can get both me and Doug in here. But Doug, how'd it go? How do you think?
I love it, man. You know, you and I could talk for hours. Our bigger problem is turning it off after an hour. But these are the conversations that need to be happening. You know, it's so much of what we see out there in collecting world is financial, and it's way more than that. It's way more than an accumulation of stuff. And these are the conversations that are really important to the power of collecting.
All right, guys. Well, again, I'm going to jump right back to me, and I just want to tell you guys, honestly, seriously, thank you for all of this. I am going to put my buddy Doug back in one more time. Doug, you know what, man? I can't tell you enough. Thank you for all of this, because guys, as we go through this, we want to hear from you, both of us, and that includes DC the Breaker and Lee. We want to hear comments and stuff you guys want to see.
Yeah.
So hit us up. You can always find us at DCDcollects@gmail.com. Shoot us a little info. And again, look for a lot more information coming out. And again, guys, thanks for your time. Doug, you have anything else to say before we leave?
Man, loved it. We're going to do a lot more of this. And thanks for being here, everybody.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you guys soon, probably in a couple days. All right, you guys have a great night.